Testing. Okay, there we go. Hmm. Okay. Alright. Hey there? I guess not. Audio. 1, 2, 3. How about now? Cool. And thank you for that. It's kind of. I haven't streamed in a few weeks and I'm just starting out, so the audio is kind of wonky. Welcome to me creating a tabletop RPG, or at least attempting to. And I'll echo and yeah, that is some good advice. I just will have to deal with you guys hearing me clicking. Since apparently this mic will pick up my keyboard and mouse. Oh. Oh. Welcome. I am working on a tabletop RPG in space. Good to know. And now I think I left off in glossary. And so I don't go crazy, I'm going to change that. Oh, okay. I'm going to bold you so I can see that you are the titles. Actually, I'm just going to do this. So what this is about is that I've been a DM for over 20 years. And I wanted to create my own based on things I wanted, and I learned that there's not a lot of space RPGs out there. I played Starfinder when it was just starting out, and neither me or my players are satisfied with it. I know Starfinder 2 is coming out, but it is still out, and there's some things I don't like about it because it's basically from what I've seen Pathfinder 2 but in space. Yeah, so I've always wanted to create a tabletop RPG, and based on a whole bunch of other systems, not just D20, to kind of combine into what I like and try to basically create a game I would be happy to play and run. So right now, last time I was streaming, I was going over the glossary. I did like how Starfinder actually does their table of contents. So I'm going to try modifying that. And I've been just looking at a whole bunch of other books and games and how they lay stuff out. Oh, that's not what I want to do. There we go. So yeah, I'm just going to continue. Feel free to do input. Right now, I guess I'm just working on the glossary. It'll probably get more interesting as I get to classes, races, skills, equipment, starships. Yeah. Right now, we're just kind of... So the intended theme is basically space fantasy. There will be magic in here. There will be technology, and there will be kind of a blend of the two. It's kind of like how like Star Wars has magic, that's the Force, but they also have tech. So yeah, basically, as I put my title, or I don't think I put in my title, but basically it's a space fantasy RPG. So, not like super like cyberpunky high tech kind of thing. Um, just because I am a big fan of magic and I like that. So, yeah, I guess space punk is probably the best term for it. Kind of my major inspiration to make this was Starfinder, which has like an mechanic which can make crazy stuff, and then they also have a mystic which can cast spells. And so I do have. Actually, I don't have the classes listed here. Maybe introduction. Where are we? Oh yeah, my classes. I have like biohacker, engineer, envoy, soldier, mage, starweaver, and technomancer. I have played Lancer before. Actually, some of the mechanics I'm going to borrow from Lancer because I love that game. One thing I want to do is take Lancer's initiative system. Because I love being able to basically say, okay, who's going first? Who's going next? And actually the Envoy, well, I haven't played the expansion, but like the Envoy, for Lancer, but Lancer has a, I guess, a new mech that can mess with initiative orders, and the Envoy is going to have the same ability where they can make an ally immediately go next, or they can make an enemy go last. It's going to be a single galaxy. Just because... yeah, I actually never thought about doing multi-galaxy, and I don't know... I mean, it really wouldn't make a difference, but... Yeah, exactly. I was really happy with... When Starfinder came out, then I had a soldier player, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to buy this gun, sell the gun, but I still get to keep the ammo, and he just basically found an instant ammo hack at level 1. And I was like, that's great. I also didn't like how Starfinder did spaceships, because it was really kind of wonky, so my players really couldn't buy the stuff themselves, which is going to be a challenge I'm going to try to tackle. But yeah, space is a nice change of pace. And it's definitely interesting how magic works with that, because you can cast invisibility, or you can get like a cloaking belt. Let's not bold this. The name of the game is something I'm still debating on, which is why I have it listed up here as an unnamed space tabletop RPG. Until I figure out a name I like, or I get good suggestions. But I'm going to do some basic stuff, and I also have some interesting ideas I got. One of them is actually from one of my favorite board games. So this is the required... No, I am not going to have grids or maps. As a DM, I like using battle maps because it helps me organize, but I also have done battles of like Theater of the Mind. And it's all up to the DM. Like, I will have the information for it because it's kind of nice. Spaceships are kind of easier to do because it's like you're all controlling one thing, and it may be a little more wonky depending on how complex the space battle goes, or you may just be forced into a battle map. Name is based on the currency of the world. So it sounds like a post-apocalyptic game, or like at least a post-apocalyptic city. If you're talking about ruins. Cool. This is the required number 2. Going to overcome spell. Action to overcome skill. Attacks. Actually, no, it's what? Defense, not attacks. I always spell defense with C. Defense. ETC, and I'm probably butchering this, but this is your card number to beat, rolling to overcome a skill, defense, etc. And I agree, and I'm still trying to work on the name. I have a few things like Starbound or Starborn, I think would be a good part, because that shows space. But I'm still trying to work on that name. But yeah, I'll have something that makes people think of space. I was thinking something along the lines of Cosmic or Cosmo also, but I'm still working on that. To see, I have no idea how I'm supposed to. Yeah, the check. You must. That is also the part I'm running into, is that there's a lot of space stuff out there that I have to kind of work around. That is why I have taken so long to figure out a name. Have your role and bonuses exceed the number. And sure, go ahead. For X equal, yeah, and I think once I get my core down, the name will come easier. EFENS of 16, you need to roll an attack of 17 or higher. And then I completely butchered the spelling of superiority, even it's right in front of me. Intergalactic, yeah. Galactic is a very good term for that kind of thing, and that's commonly used, which is the hard part. Superiority die is an additional die that can influence your roll in a positive way. And there goes my dog being a dog, yeah. Yeah, and I'm thinking about like having like a word and then like you said, like a sentence behind it. But yeah, I'm also thinking like having like a group in there and naming it after that group, like Pathfinder has a group called the Pathfinder Society. So that can influence your role in a positive way. Superiority dice and inferiority dice is kind of based off of the fighter system in 5e, where you will get an additional roll or additional dice that can give you a bonus. These come in 3 versions. Minor superiority. I'm going to completely butcher that even though it's right in front of me. Yeah, consortium is a good word. I love that one. And I have a group in here that I've used in a bunch of campaigns called the Echo Consortium. And they are basically a group that blends magic with biology in an unfortunate way. UPRIOR, minor superiority, and major UPRIORIT, major superiority. And I'm going to do D4. Medium is a D8. D8. And major is a D12. And what you do is, if you get major superiority, you get to roll that with your D20 and add that to it. You have superiority. Yeah, when you have superiority, actually no. SUPERIORIT. I'm just gonna copy this and just paste it because I'm tired of not being able to spell this correctly. Furry dice. Are added to your D20 roll and can be specified Oh yeah, I use the stores all the time. And that's kind of how I got Starbound, because I was looking at like other stuff. To be specified for specific rule or general general next time you D20. So superior dice are added to your D20 roll and can be specified for a specific roll or a general next time you roll D20. Cool. When you gain superiority, what kind of goals? As weird as it may sound, is my goal is to kind of make a game I would enjoy running and playing in. But I just kind of want to make a game where you get that kind of space adventure. So like a Serenity or Star Wars or even kind of like a Dark Matter. Have you ever seen that sci-fi show? Well, basically, each class will have like a feel, and but you can mix and match to make a unique character. And just basically going on space adventures, dealing with politics, or dealing with like a war, or just being a general bounty hunter mercenary. Um, that's the kind of goal. I just kind of want to make a game that has that space feel to it. Did you see in a lot of like sci-fi shows or like in certain like games? Um, and make it unique. I I have superiority and inferiority dice, which is basically a way to get an extra dice to improve your roll. And in crits, I like how like in Lancer, critical hits. Well, yeah, critical hits. If you roll above 20 is a critical hit. I like that. I think we're going to make it 25, but just the fact that you can have the ability to influence how often you crit. And you'll get like kind of like a sniper build. Like the soldier will have a variety of archetypes kind of built in that you don't really are locked into. Kind of like with Lancer, you just pick what you want and mix and match. Um, so yeah, I mean, long-winded rant, but my goal is kind of just make a fun space game with unique ideas and stuff. Yes, actually, let me scroll up. I actually have a list of skills already. Like engineering, piloting, biology, physics, medicine, negotiation, intimidate, conditioning, which I don't remember what that does, but I have that written down somewhere. Yeah, there was really no pilots stuff. It was just all mechs, but I do like how you get to choose it. So instead of choosing like mech abilities, you basically can mix and match your player abilities. Um, but yeah, so here are my skills: thievery, lore. Um, yeah, I have to actually look that up, but it's in my notes somewhere because I don't remember off the top of my head. Oh, I wanted to say that was probably a shoot off of survival. Yeah, and I probably will add or take away depending. I wanted like the three major sciences, which was engineering, physics, biology, piloting, medicine, negotiations, kind of a catch-all for like the deception and diplomacy. It's just how well you can talk. Um, lore, I really like how Pathfinder does lore because you can just kind of write it in. It can work in your area, and you can actually use it as stuff. Like so, if like you've a person who really likes warships, you can actually use that knowledge. And to kind of make your character more unique, I'm planning on giving each character the ability to choose one lore of their choice for free. Basically, just like this is your personal knowledge because you're interested in that, and you can use that to recall knowledge. Like if you have I'm really interested in desert climates. Whenever you land on a desert planet, you can use that to get bonuses on it. Hyperdrive or warp travel? That is a good question. I kind of like hyperdrive because it is more linear in how things work. And one thing I didn't like about Starfinder was you're going from point to point and then you do not know how long it takes. Um, but I'm not set on that, so warp. I know there will be. Yeah, exactly. Knowledge insert topic. There will be kind of like the Mass Effect gates. Um, because like one thing I like that does is that they actually add like world building stuff into it, which I kind of want to do, so you kind of get like a feel. and one of the races can't, whatever I choose, whether it's hyperdrive or warp, can't use that. All they can do is kind of warp gates because they just can't kind of grasp that technology. It's kind of above their heads. Yeah, so this is going to kind of work like the old 3.5 system, where you will get like ranks and you can actually put them into skills. So the more bonuses you get, the better you can pilot. And I don't really like the idea of a cutoff, where like you can't pilot this ship unless you're this skilled. You're just going to be really bad at it, and that's going to affect how well your ship's AC is, how well you can move, or your maneuverability are. Yeah. Basically was that way until like 4th edition. But I like being able to like put points into something that you may not be skilled at. It kind of helps with character building. Nice. When you gain superiority dice, gain a superiority die, I guess. Since it's technically 1. You get it will be listed as yeah, 3.5 was kind of interesting. I did like Pathfinder, the original only core of Pathfinder 1, because it was basically like 3.5 because it was both more stuff. It felt more. There was not a lot of dead levels, which is the pain. Superiority. This is the superiority. Superiority die you gain. If you gain additional dice, you increase the die you use by 1 stage. Example, if you have minor superiority and gain major die, you now have medium. And this is something that's kind of, I thought of like, what happens if you have a minor ability that gives you minor superiority and this one gives you major? I don't want to kind of bounce back and forth. But I like the idea of I do like the idea that they are you can set a higher superiority. So instead of just saying, hey, you get superiority and you go up in stages. But it also lets you have to plan around. Are there gods or eldritch space entities? Technically, yes. Let me actually. The thing with the gods is that there are like eldritch. There are a few eldritch quote unquote beings. but they... I don't know, have you ever seen Star Trek? They're kind of like a less powerful version of Q. So let me actually see if I can pull one up. Yeah, godlike beings. And the one I have that's kind of like an Eldritch being, he's called the Banished Muse. And basically he kind of is in a separate like dimension. And whenever he breaks free in that area, people just tend to kind of lose their minds. But like his kind of story is that like he gives people a power, and all he asks for is exchange is when he calls on you, you basically tell him what you've been up to, because he's kind of in forced isolation. He doesn't like really want to be there, but he also can't leave, so he's trying to like live vicariously through his followers. And so he's kind of like the only like eldritch like being. But then we have like people from like fallen empires who are like trying to regain their former glory, so they're considered like a godlike being because they have way greater technology. There is one, I don't, let me see if I can find his name. I don't know if I've had a name for him yet. No, but basically what he is he is basically a child of a species that no longer exists. And he basically kind of found this old, he got kind of crash landed on this planet that's also dead, and he was able to decipher their stories, and he found like their whole like stories of knights and valor. And so he uses kind of knowledge of technology to make that. So there are going to be like swords, you can get like metal armor. It's basically, you're going to be able to have like some fantasy kind of like armor and equipment, but they're going to be sci-fied. So like you can get a sword in this game, because there will be melee weapons, but your sword can also be like energized to do electric damage instead of slashing. The armor is going to work a little bit differently, so having access to like this like full plate, but not actually being steel, but being like this lightweight composite metal, gives you great, highly sought after resistances to physical damage. There is one I like. He's called the Being of Provocation. It's basically an AI that's trapped, and he's basically giving people power in order to defeat a dungeon with this evil creature at the end. And the whole goal of it is to basically, he's the evil creature, he wants you to end his misery by breaking through his prison and ending his life. But yeah, so that's kind of how my gods work. They're just powerful creatures with either technology or ancient stuff, and they give you help. Oh, hello, Autodesk. They give you bonuses in exchange for something. Kind of more like warlock patrons. Yeah, that's a good name. Nice. Is like die. That the won't give you a penalty to except the die gives you a penalty. Gives you a penalty to your D20 roll. Yeah. And actually I'm just going to add PERIORITY and Dice. This will be a completely custom universe. There will be humanity because you just kind of have to have humanity, but it's basically not going to be based off of our world, our universe at all. And I'm actually going to try to make, you know how like a lot of humans in D&D and stuff are like super generalist. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like humans are the space orcs, but I am trying to make humans like that. Like they're like kind of crazy, but in the way the way humans are. So it's not like they get like an extra feat, an extra skill point. They're like, um, you get bonuses for endurance checks for walking long distances or whatever, or you take one less damage from environmental conditions. Yeah, so. Dice. And if you don't know. Are dice that defy your D20 roll. No, that are added to your D20. Have I delved into history? I have not yet. I think I'll flesh out more of everything after I finish my first draft and get more into it. I do have a bunch of races like kind of fleshed out. Some of them are from when I was running a Starfinder campaign. But for the most part, I just have like loose concepts. As I finish this rough draft, I'm gonna go in and do some edits, flesh out some more stuff. It's gonna be a process. 0. These rolls get added to was added to each other. How am I going to describe this? And, linearly. Linearly, is that how you spell it? Maybe. When you gain a die, the die will have a number next to it. For example, yeah, I was actually thinking about having humanity not be faction based. Definitely some aspects of human culture we have today are kind of put into other races I have. If you want to talk about like alternate world human, I have like this nomad group that you. I guess I don't know if I'll make it a playable race, but basically, they had factions. They went to space, and they still had their factions, and then they lost their planet. So now they're kind of considered separate. They're kind of treated as separate, like species, even though they're all the same, based on how they behave. Like they're considered, like you deal with one of these groups versus different another. You have to do two separate things, and sometimes they have different preferences. Exactly. So the lore will always be optional. I mean, I took Starfinder and ran with it, but it gives people a starting point. Like if they're new DMs, I know they like having more lore to kind of base off of. Experienced DMs just kind of make their own thing and just use the mechanics. But yeah, definitely lore-based system will be easier to fill out. It's just, if I'm creating my own game, I might as well put my own lore in because I enjoy that just as much. When you gain or die after that, you move it. Yeah, I'm gonna actually just combine these. They are, yeah, they have a competition between humans. They are classified as minor D4 and major. These rolls get added to each other linearly. When you gain a die, the die will have a number next to it. When you gain superiority or inferiority after that, you move the die when you gain superiority and inferiority die. When you gain an additional superiority or inferiority die, before you use how am I going to explain this? Before you use the die, but is it just before you use the original die, you move the die down one stage. For example, if you have minor superiority and gain one stage, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go super into each, like how they're like factions of that, because there's gonna be like in space games you're focused more on the species as a whole, not like in D&D where you have countries and stuff. When you get into space, it's kind of like, yeah, you're all together now, and you can have different cultures and stuff from areas. I don't feel like getting that crazy. regions of the number stated improving minor superiority and gain major inferiority. You now have neither. Yeah, probably will just leave it vague. I mean, like I said, like if a person wants to get, DM wants to get into that, they will. With having in the center. Now you have more. Indeed. If you were to gain, oh yeah, definitely short history. If you were to gain major Does this make sense to you guys? Basically, you have like a linear track which goes from minus D12, minus D8, minus D4, 0, plus D4, plus D8, plus D12. And wherever you get, you start with that. Or you start with a minor. And then, no matter what you get, it just kind of progresses up and down that track by one stage. Gain. But yeah, if any of you guys, if that, hopefully that's clear enough to you guys, because that's going to be, I think one of the biggest challenges is getting my thoughts clearly explained on paper. So if that makes sense, let me know. If it doesn't, tell me why it doesn't make sense, and I'll try making it clear. I think I'm going to because of that, I'm just going to get rid of these two, but I'm going to oops. Yeah, kind of. So it will just say superiority, and you get minor. But if it says you do this, give medium superiority, they'll start off at a D8 level. And then anytime you get influence after that, before you roll that dice, it goes up and down one stage. Actually, let's open up Paint. Let's see if I can just show it to you guys. One, two. I mean, it's gonna be kind of bad, but then 0, then 1, 3. So basically, you have so any suggestions on how to fix that? Because it's basically 12, 8, 4, 0. Do you only get superiority when you find out what you're rolling for? Picture it as bardic inspiration. So it could be, and the abilities will change too. So it could be, you gain minor superiority on your next attack roll, or you get minor inferiority on your next d20 roll. So it's kind of used right away. But yeah, so that's kind of what I had in mind. But so if you were getting d12 before you roll your d4, it'd become a medium. The number only affects your initial bonus, and everything else gets modified to that. Yeah, it's basically rolling an extra dice and adding that number to your roll. So yeah, if you have 4 superiority and you earn a d12, the d12 replaces no, the d12 moves it up one stage. These dice, this die, I guess I should put die, right? Must be used. Yes. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a little wordy. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. These must be used when the I don't know. Does success or failure affect the modded bonuses? No. It's basically just a boon or a bane to your roll. So why not keep them as a pool? Because I have a bunch of abilities which will benefit and actions that will give you these dice. And if you have a superiority minor and an inferiority medium, having a player roll both and then add and subtract, but add one dice and subtract the others. Because why would they use it? Because they'd be forced to use it. Picture it as like a debuff cast on them. They will have no choice but to use it. And so enemies can give that to you, but you can give that to enemies to make them less likely to succeed. Correct, kind of like advantage or disadvantage, except I'm also using advantage and disadvantage in this game because they both fit two separate purposes. If you have a great bonus, advantage and disadvantage can be offset, but if you have like a +1, having advantage and with a high DC really won't help you out, versus getting like a +7 to the roll and having advantage. So this will let you do inferiority and superiority dice, will let you be able to do and pass checks you normally wouldn't be able to. No, you only get one, and you have to use it next. Basically, it's like an immediate bonus. So I think when you write down, it's immediately used. The die is used Yeah, no, I'm talking about both. It's like a linear line. So if an ally gives you, when you're a sniper, gives you like medium superiority, and your enemies don't want to get sniped, they can kind of try debuffing you and bringing that dice down. And considering if you roll above like a 20, you get a crit, it gives you some dynamics on influencing how the attack rolls are going to go. Correct. Yeah. And so I think in the abilities I'm going to go your next attack roll. So one of the actions you can do that's buff and debuff are good. I do like the idea of superiority, and I'm trying to use it based on people associations other games. Superiority works kind of similarly to the fighter ability, but yeah, buff and debuff may be more clear. So I will. So how can I make that clearer? Because when you gain a dice in the section that says gain, like for example the aiming action, you gain minor superiority on your next ranged attack roll. So they will say you basically in your next roll you have to use it. When you gain inferior. Um, so superiority die is for the fighter archetype in 5th edition. And inferiority dice probably doesn't exist anywhere, but I wanted I'm trying to create something that sounds the same, so people will know. Like buff and debuff work perfectly because you can, they're opposites of each other. So superiority and inferiority are opposites of that. Yeah, it's literally only to the fighter battlemaster archetype. The die will have is redundant from the sentence before, which shows that it does have a number. So you think I should get rid of that? I mean, it kind of makes sense. You're gonna die. Yeah. Also, I'm planning on the character sheet to actually having like that tracker, like I showed you here, way more fancified, and basically you can just put a marker there to show where you are in that track to kind of help visualize it. But okay, I will remove that. I think I agree with that. Um, yeah, and then instead of just I can just say I can just make them specify whenever they gain that it is what it is, not just say gain superiority die. Okay, cool. Oh, now we can move on to the next one. Fate die, which is from Tales of Arabian Nights. Yeah. Um, I'm not sure if you have heard of Daggerfall, which is Critical Role's like game system. I do like how they have a good storytelling way of rolling. So I should explain the superiority and then inferiority and then combine them. Okay. Alright, you want your roll. So, what do you think about the superiority dice section I have now then? Yeah, I will have that in like the combat section. I do like books that do that. To kind of basically go over a round of combat. Um, Yeah, and that's kind of like the unfortunate thing. This is just kind of like a glossary section I'm working on right now, where people kind of go and get like, what is this? Um, it will be probably more understanding when I do like the whole like, here's how combat is supposed to work in the combat section. Yeah, so I think I'm going to move on. The great part about this is that I will always can always go back to it and reward it. Like, the first revision is always the roughest. This is going to be a kind of a pain one to explain also. Yeah. Yeah, and so I was saying Daggerfall, if you've ever seen them, it's 2d12. One's like a positive, one's a negative. So if you succeed and your positive dice is higher than your negative, you succeed with bonuses. But if your negative's higher than your positive, you succeed but with some issues. I do not like the idea of rolling 2 dice for like a d20 check because of how the way the bell curve of the rolls work. So there's this game called Tales of Arabian Nights, which is basically a story of the Arabian Nights you play as, and they have a fate dice which modifies what happens. I added to a skill check, and this will not be used in combat. This is like for skills, and it's a DM. It's a DM tool, so they don't have to use it. But they can be like, oh, for example, I was playing with a guy, and he's trying to launch a spear with a 10-foot bag down a shaft mine, trying to hit a guy and tangling him so that he doesn't fly up and attack us as we run away. That's something you want the fate die for. It's like, do you succeed? How well do you succeed? Honestly, I see people use a lot of stuff similar to that with diplomacy, because that's not always you instantly pass. DM can similar roll modifies two skill triggers from a roll that modifies the success or failure of a roll for storytelling purposes. The die is a D6. Yeah, how am I gonna? This is. And I think they'll be fleshed out in the abilities. They don't get to choose. It's the action that gives them that. So, for example, a high-level envoy ability couldn't just give them major superiority, but a level 1 envoy ability can only probably give minor. So you'd want more, but you'd have to gain the ability that gives you more. D6. Yeah, there will be very few instances, and I can only think of one off the top of my head, where you would give inferiority to yourself, and that's basically firing like a rocket launcher without like a power armor, like, or something like that. Because you have the blowback and the forces, it would kind of make it harder for your next attack roll. But enemies can give it to you. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a debuff you can give to enemies and enemies can give to you. No one wants inferiority dice. And so willingly giving to yourself is something I'm not planning on letting you being able to do. Your 20 roll. If you even numbers represent a success, but comes and odd numbers possibly. That that'd be a version of revision 1 or 2 or 3. I have to figure that out. Who's an odd number? D6 is rolled in addition to D20 roll. Even numbers represent positive outcomes. The DM chooses 1 and 2 use fate die. Yeah. Even represent positive outcomes and odd numbers represent complications. For if your skill check but roll odd on the fate die, you succeed. No, there are some modifications to your likewise if you fail a check and roll even on the fate die, some good came out of it. Yeah, so the die you get is tied to the ability that you're using to gain it. So, for example, one of the actions you can take is to aim your gun, and that will give you minor superiority. But it will only ever give you minor superiority with one exception. Or positive one exception. So if you want a better starting inferiority dice for enemies or superiority for allies, you have to gain an ability that lets you do that. But it's also something the DM can just do. Like, they are, God, just like with the fate die does not have to be used at all. But if you want some more interesting storytelling beats, you'd be like, hey, I'm going to hack this computer. Okay, you failed horribly, but no one sensed your hack because you rolled even on the fate die, so you can try again with no complications. Okay. Yeah. I really appreciate you guys' advice and inferiority superiority. It probably will get more exciting as we get into like the equipment and like the kit class abilities and stuff, because that's when you can get kind of creative. Yes, kind of sort of. Have you guys ever played Rogue Trader? That is a game where it's Warhammer, where you level up after. Basically, you get a pool of abilities. Abilities. Let's say there's 10 of them, um, and you can spend experience points to get an ability. And after you spend 1,000 experience, you become level 2, and you gain access to level 2 abilities. I love how that system works, because instead of waiting on a level up, you get minor incrementally stronger, and then you get your like level up boost. And that's I played Rogue Trader and I fell in love with that system, and that's kind of how I want the classes to work here, where it's not like you level up, you get bonuses. To get to the stronger level 2 abilities, you have to gain minor level 1 abilities, so you're constantly growing as you go. You don't have to wait like 3 months, then you're a level 2, you gain new abilities, you're constantly kind of growing. And so you won't really, so there will be like skills that are like level 2, which is just a straight up improvement to level 1, I think. I'm still debating on if I should have requirements for all of these or not have any requirements for any of these. Meaning like, oh, you have to get this level 1 ability before you can get the level 2 version. I don't want to kind of lock people out of crazy ideas based on that, because like with Lancer, you're kind of like, to get the good stuff, you have to put points into all of them, like the frame, but you can still get a lot of cool level 1 stuff. Pathfinder is pretty crazy. I'm playing the Pathfinder 2e game, and there's a lot of rules. I love how crazy unique your character can be, but I'm one of 2 experienced players with a bunch of new players, and it's just kind of crazy. get to, yeah, well, after these, all the rest of these kind of things are pretty straightforward. Round. From abilities. Yeah, so Paizo, the company that makes Pathfinder, the main majority of their early employees were from Wizards of the Coast. They weren't happy with the way 4th edition and 5e were going, so they kind of split off to make a more like 3rd edition version of D&D. Yeah, so right now there's 2 ways to level up in D&D. It's basically your DM tells you you're leveling up or you gain experience. And so that's how I'm going to kind of keep that. Yeah, it was short. Pathfinder's kind of referred to as 3.75. It came out like 4 or 5 years after 3.5, but it was really close to but I don't remember how close it was to 4th edition. I don't know if it came before or after 4th edition. But I think it was right around the time, because 4th edition really was kind of focused on combat and not on the out of combat, which is great, but like sometimes you just want to do some out of combat drama. Sneak around as a rogue and eavesdrop on people. Get into like weird debates with strangers, or gather information, or just make stuff. I'm a big maker in real life, so I love crafting systems. I've not heard that term spell plague. That's interesting. Sounds ominous. Round is how do I explain that? Oh yeah, how do you explain the difference between a round and a turn? That's one of those things where like you know what it is, but you can't explain it. A round is when all players and NPCs in combat is where involved is 4th edition storyline connected to the 5e world building? I did not know that. That's cool. I like how they had do that. In combat. Around, so all players and NPCs involved in combat take actions once everyone to take their 2 turns. Once everyone has taken their turn, then a new round starts. So I'm actually going to take this. I'm going to put that underneath turn because that makes more sense. Turn. Oh, cool. I vaguely remember Helm dying somewhere along that lines. Because Helm, I really like the concept of Helm as a god. Fifth, I guess Faerun. Plan combat takes their actions. Yeah, he is. He basically is the protector of Faerun from outside sources. Like, he really doesn't interfere with like countries fighting each other. But if Hell tries to invade, he steps in. If like Heaven tries to invade, he steps in. He's kind of like the neutral party, saying, "Leave these guys out of it. Go do your own things elsewhere." Which is kind of cool because normally when you hear about like a protector god, they're good, not really neutral. Be kind of be like, I'll step into all fights involved. I don't care who started it. Stop. Well, that's the thing. He did die. Then he kind of like came back because the gods killed him because of what he. I believe the story was the gods killed him because they were like upset with him being like, "Hey, calm yourselves." So. Actually. I don't know. I'm used to gaining the abilities. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not super familiar. I'm not super up to date on that. The stories of that. Yeah, I've definitely looked more into that. Used in casting spells and in casting man maintaining spells. They gained. I'll add that later. Primary class is the first class you choose. When leveling up in this class, you gain both primary and secondary. So what class multi-classing is going to work is you have your primary class, which is basically the class you choose at level 1, and you gain and then secondary classes every class besides your primary. There's going to be some abilities where like it makes sense thematically with this character, but will work really well with the ability sets for like this. For example, the engineer class can It has some really cool like tech abilities that could go very well if you're trying to be a tank soldier class. Like soldiers don't really get a shield ability to create like a shield on themselves, but engineers can. Um, but when you level up, as I said, you get slow increments, but of like abilities. When you level up, you get like a boost, and that can come from of you get health, you get skill points, you get other stuff, spell points. It's separated into primary and secondary. So your primary class gets you both of those sections. Secondary only gets you the second half. So primary and secondary abilities. And leveling up means class. Abilities. These you gain are based on. Oh. I don't think abilities is the correct word because I'm using abilities as what you can do that. So when you choose this class, you gain both primary and secondary bonuses. These yeah, I know like Kalen basically got into a drunken bet and actually became a god, but he was so drunk he didn't know how he did it. You gain these. Yeah. Or other class that is not the primary. Yeah, probably. That sounds like something he would do. Second, the AR classes cannot be no must be at least one level lower than your primary. Basically, let's say there's like 5 quote-unquote levels. Your primary class you can get to level 5 abilities, but you can't get secondary class level 5 abilities. So your primary class will always give you the higher tier stuff, while secondary class will let you get your minor stuff you want. The layer level. Players gain the players are considered the level. How do I put this? Yeah, I haven't played any of the Baldur's Gates besides 3 in years. Players. Gain the level. Level up by gaining in yeah, 4U is kind of awkward. Players level by gaining ability of that level. I'm going to use the bathroom. We'll be right back, and then we can continue away from the glossary. Okay, I'm back. So this class system does not work like anything you're familiar with, based on what you've told me. Um, on like 5th edition, you have level 1 through 20. I think I would like to get to level 10, but I don't know if I'll have the creativity for all the abilities required. But so right now I'm kind of I'm stopping at level 5, and so but your character is based on abilities. Like when you play in 5th edition, you pick your character, you pick your archetype, and your abilities are linear. You can change some feats and stuff. Here is, let's say you want to be a soldier. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, let's do it actually. So my max level is based on my ability to come up with ideas. So if you look at, here's my notes. If you look at engineer, your armor's energy defense is added to your shield, but your armor no longer protects you from energy damage. Grants the ability to move anti-piracy devices. Gain a drone using one of the drone stat blocks. These are all abilities you choose, and they're based in level blocks. So at level 1, there'll be like 10 abilities you can choose from. At level 2, you'll get like an additional 10. And so on and so forth. So when you are leveling up and you want a secondary class, you want ability like, let's say the envoy has. Make a target take their turn next to kind of change the abilities. You can't get an envoy's second level ability if you're not 3rd level in engineer. That's your primary class. So basically, you're going to be mixing and matching your abilities. Like Chase was saying, Lancer is kind of similar, where you have mechs and you have basically augment parts you put onto your mech, and they can come from a whole variety of groups. And that's kind of what I liked, where you can kind of build your character based on abilities. You're not linear in you choose a class, you gain these abilities. And Pathfinder is kind of like that, where you can kind of go, you have a lot more variety. So that's how that works. So you only get the levels basically saying what level of abilities you can get. So your primary class can give you any ability of that class, but secondary classes can't give you the highest level of abilities because it's not your primary class, if that makes sense. Yeah, and that's and that kind of feeds into the whole soft leveling, where you gain small abilities and then you get your ability bonus. So I think I'm going to skip character creation as I get everything else down. Yeah, I'm just gonna add them. Character creation sections are usually like a step-by-step walkthrough on how to create your character. And until I have everything down, it's kind of just moot point. So I'm gonna go over the race. I'm gonna go over character creation is honestly kind of like the last thing you need to do once you get everything. A base race number? I don't know what you mean by that. um, oh yeah, I'm not gonna have elves or orcs or anything like that. Because if you want to be one of those, you can play fantasy. I like the whole idea of space being unique, and all the like fantasy races kind of follow the stereotypical kind of like humanoid playable races. And like if you're there's a game called Stellaris. It's a 4X in space game, and the races you can play are unique and vast, and I kind of like that. Starfinder had one where you had a race with 4 arms, and I'm not sure about like stuff like that. Is that? Oh, nice. There's a thing where like it's cool to be like a monstrous race, but also people tend to like being humanoid, which is why most people tend to pick humanoid races in fantasy games, regardless of if they have the option not to. So a lot of my races are, ah, but yeah, like you can be like oozes and stuff. There's actually going to be a slime race. I kind of have worked out, but there's humans and there's going to be other things, and then we can kind of play around with their biology and how that affects their society. So, for example, I have a race. I don't think I gave them a name or even in my notes yet. Okay, so I have some of them. Um, Actually, I think there's one thing I'm going to add. If I can find it into character creation, just as it's there for the time being. Where did I put you? Well, I mean, if you think about humans, one of the races I have, I don't have a name for. When you have a child, it's roughly a 50% chance of being a male or female. But what if you have a 90% chance of it being a female? How would that affect your society? So there's going to be a race in my game where if you choose female, your racial bonuses will be more physical, but if you choose a male, they'll be more mental, because as they kind of were forced into adaptation of how to help their you kind of need to be smarter to survive. Um, there's uh, I do like in Starfinder, AIs are rare. I mean, there are computers, but they're not like true AI. So there's gonna be a true AI race. Um, and so like it's not really like a Warforged because Warforged really can't produce themselves. These guys kind of gain sentience, and their creators like, oh, we created a living being. Welcome to our society. You now have all of our rights as a living creature. And then that race died off. So it's kind of an interesting storytelling aspect of you have this race that's following the customs of a species that does not exist anymore, but they to the outside world, but they don't consider themselves a separate species. So stats. All right. So the stats I have I'm just gonna put them in character creation. Strength, agility, body, brilliance, ingenuity. So there is no oh, nice. And when I was creating a Starfinder campaign, a few of these are actually from my world because Starfinder had like the core races, but I wanted the whole expansion of the galaxy, so I made a whole bunch of races and how they would react to each other. So these are my stats. There is no charisma. Basically, if your strength, agility is your dex, body is your con, brilliance is your intelligence, and ingenuity is your kind of like wisdom. But there really is no. But that's kind of ingenuity kind of calculates charisma as well as brilliance. But I'm putting that there so when I give racial bonuses, there are many races throughout the galaxy with their own unique quirks and abilities. Come from vast walks of life that allow them to gain to taken from all vast walks of life that allow races. Yeah. Charisma is kind of one of those, like, unless you're using a, like, talking your way out of stuff, it really doesn't, or you're like a sorcerer, it really doesn't do much. And I'm trying to make sure all these stats have some uses, so all of them are going to kind of play a part in your defensive abilities. And all of them can play a part, except for body, your offensive. Body, I was thinking about just getting rid of body, but I really like the ability to, like, have more health if you want to be more tanky, and also there are a few things I want to add that having like a body defensive ability makes the most sense. But that can always change. To vast walks of life. Yeah. Pathfinder 2e has perception being not a skill, it's its own thing. And the DM can kind of roll for that to see if you notice stuff. I have not fully decided what to do with perception yet. Yeah, because I actually do have perception as a skill. Yeah, again, that's up to conditioning. I've the ones like instinct, which is kind of in terms of 5e, it's whatever that one is called that people just use as a lie detector. But yeah, I don't remember what that ability's called. But everyone uses it as a lie detector. I like the fact that instinct can be like, do you get weird vibes? Do I feel like something bad is going to happen? Do I feel like kind of like a vibe check? Why is Steam showing up? Okay. Walks of life. That Verge them from other races in terms of culture, technology, and weaknesses. So I have human, what my other races I've written down. I don't have a name for them. I'm just gonna call them wirelesses here. Human, ooze, and I have and Cade. Yeah, I have thought about that because there will be kind of augmentations here. But I think I'm going to tie that into your body. So, have you ever played Fallout New Vegas? You can get modifications to your body, and that's tied to how your special stat, that endurance stat. And I like that. So, if you want more racial augments, you can increase your body modifier. In addition, Biohacker will gain other ways of increasing that number. And so that kind of makes that role kind of moot point when you can just take points in Biohacker and then modify it anyway. And 3 spend on any ability, what did I call them? Yeah, if you stick with me as I'm making this, you can probably point out a lot of inspiration I get from a lot of different sources. Any Get 3 points spent on any racial specialties. You gain their stats and the primary Won't spend any. Okay, so human body plus 1. Unity plus 1. You the X by 1. The hard part is going to be trying to balance all these races around each other. Reduce the damage you take from environmental effects by 1. Again, humans as the space orcs. Excellent. 1. Welcome back. And some other. We're just working on human stuff. I didn't write down much for this race, but I'm trying to get away from the whole. They're really versatile, and you gain bonus skill points and stuff. And then like the humans as. The underscore next to lore is basically like a blank line, so you write in what the lore is. So lore can be anything. If you want lore spaceships, lore carnivores, lore warp drives. Basically, it's giving your character some knowledge that they're passionate about that can be used to help them in game. And it can be whatever you want to be. If you want lore of a... Be like, I know lore humanity. Anything involving humans, you can say like, oh, I want to recall that. Like, you find this derelict spaceship. It's been there for who knows how long. Your lore humanity, you recognize these markings. I want to use my lore humanity to know any information about the ship. And if you don't have that lore, you may be like, okay, history check, I can kind of figure it out. Maybe some engineering, I can kind of figure out runs. But with humanity, being like, oh, I remember that ship disappeared. This time it had this, and this in it. Or like a lore of tech weapons. You can kind of identify the weapon on a person's hip. So, you know, if you really want to get into a fight with them. It's a really good storytelling skill to kind of flesh out how your character is, what your character is. Yeah, no. I think lore is the best. I think I like the term lore. Because knowledge can also be used, um, but you can also use skills to recall knowledge. I don't want to confuse people. Technology. Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, they're perks. Basically, when you choose a race, you gain their um, you get their racial abilities. Let me get rid of primary, and then you can spend points on racial specialties. So right now I'm working on the human's perks. Basically, no matter what human you choose, you gain these. You gain body +1, ingenuity +1, and then I'm going again. Like humans are like much more durable to environments than people give us credit for. So like reduce damage due to like being on an extremely cold planet without the correct gear, or your penalties due to the lack of food and water and sleep is one tier less. Um, how do I explain this? Gain the effects of the lack of food, water, and sleep are treated as one tier lower. One thing I'm going to kind of probably add is a optional rule section, basically stuff I want to do, and that does kind of play a part, but yeah. But I do think there's a cool survival aspect you can add, and so just like in regular 5e and stuff, there's food and stuff, but not many people use it. I like the ability to have that as well, especially because you can crash land on the planet, and survival can do that, and you can kind of be like, oh, no, it's actually higher. So penalties for lack of food, water, and sleep are treated as one tier lower. So basically, if you have tier 2 penalties for lack of food, you, you only get the effects of being tier 1. Once you get to like tier 5, you die. So you're way better at surviving in harsh environments without the proper equipment for longer, which makes it very good if you. Again, and that's just like combat story beats. If you want to have the whole standard, you meet at a yes, the whole standard of you all meet at a bar is great, but like imagine if you're all traveling together on a ship, transport ship, and your ship crashes. Now you have to get off this planet. Being a human really can help you out. Or not being fully aware of what the climate is can kind of help you out. And then racial specialties is basically you get like 3 points. And you can spend them to gain additional racial ability. There's a guy, I just watched part of his stuff, and he gave me some good inspiration of, I think it's called DC-20, it's his take on fantasy. And Pathfinder 2, he got from Pathfinder 2, because Pathfinder 2 does it too, where your racial is not just a one-time thing. It can grow with you. But also, you can also spend points and get cool abilities. Yeah, hope you feel better. I'm probably going to end in a little bit anyway. Damage. You too. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to. This gonna be the hard part of just me trying to figure out. And what all these abilities do. And this is where the time will come in. I'm just gonna have to think about it as we go. But let me move on to what I do have, which is Ooze, which is not the name we're gonna name him, but whatever. Huh. So here's one of the things that, unfortunately, I think you left. But the Ooze race you can get a major superiority when rolling negotiation when you're caught breaking the law. And that's because they're considered a lawless society, even though they're technically not a lawless society. And the Ooze is kind of one of the monstrous races, but I think they're kind of cool. Ooze. Racial abilities. There. These plus 1. And I think that's all they get. But they do get a few other abilities. To acid. And the big thing, which is why, and I think, yeah, I'm going to have to work on some balancing things, but we'll see that when I have all the races. Um, sure. T, due to nature, they can't take due to their being confined. Find like the species they can take two forms. They can take two forms. I kind of like that these forms can be chosen every day, but I think I'll cross that bridge when we get there. So multiple forms. One of two forms. Bipedal and quadruped. Gaining different abilities. Quadruped, okay, so bipedal. To your, oh, actually, yeah, what do I think, do I have written down my notes what bipedal does? Giving, yeah, what would bipedal give them over being quadruped? I would like to say I have no idea, and that's what I'm going to say. I have no idea. So I will come back to that. It's UPED quadruped. Seeing extra movement. Give minor in being shoved. One thing I kind of want to do is I kind of want to add abilities that they can choose as well. Like there's a plant race I have, and they based on their cultures they have a unique technology that you won't be able to get at level 1. But I said like rank 3, you can put a point into your racial one, and you gain the access of a light shield, which is really kind of cool to have. And it's kind of strong. Can't be changed. Yeah. Okay, so legs. What do I have for legs? I also have 2 movement. Movement. Okay. Arms. What are arms going to do? Let's hold 2 more one-handed items or two-handed item. Okay. And actually my thing is going to be 2 points. Sorry. And then how do you spell lawyer? Lawyer. You gain superiority when using negotiation. To talk your way out of trouble. To crime. And this is going to be a 1. And I'll come with more of that. Actually, I do have another one. Accurate homestead. Your this to method comes in immunity. That's going to be a +2. And then Cade. Cade gets +1. Actually, do I want? No, they get body. Body +1. Even though they're quite intelligent, that's kind of going to be a unique reflection of that. And their bodies affected by two disease and poison. Disease and poison. Disease, poison. And poison. And they do not need to eat, drink, or sleep. Cool. And then when they're crazy about racial specialties, is engineer to live. um, yeah, so I'm gonna actually make it so you. To put to a. So something I think I need to do some different terminology because of racial ability into two racial abilities. Yeah, I guess. Racial scores. Racial scores. And can be taken one. We are only the original. Racial abilities can be taken one level, then normally required. I'm going to make this I think a 3. Both of those really kind of don't go well together. So yeah, I think when you get rid of this, it's kind of weird. So you basically have a race that can die. I think it's a unique ability. And Silent Defender is not there. Two. Gain access to the particle pistol. And, and that's the kind of thing, like, certain races are going to get access to certain race-specific equipment, like the particle weapons, which are Cade ones, which are pretty fun. I don't know if they would be the best, but like they are. It's going to be kind of interesting. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it there. Thank you for watching and the lovely conversation. Because it was really cool, and I hope you guys, and for the help. Chase, you still see you're in here, but thank you for your advice with the superiority and inferiority dice. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow around 1. I probably should post a schedule on Twitch, which I'll get to eventually. So, have a good day.